live long. Caesar was connected to Sulla's enemies through family. His uncle was Marius, a great general who had fought against Sulla, and Caesar had married a young woman named Cornelia, whose father was also an enemy. Sulla ordered Caesar to divorce her, to leave her, to prove his loyalty. Many men would have done it. It was the safe choice. But Caesar refused. He was a teenager. He had no army, no real power. And yet, he looked at one of the most dangerous men in Rome and said no. Sulla was surprised. Some say he even laughed. He let Caesar live, but took away his position, his property, and his wife's money. Caesar had to hide, moving from place to place, always watching the shadows. He became sick during this time, but he survived. And when Sulla's power began to fade, Caesar came back, with nothing but standing. He had lost everything except the one thing that mattered most: his courage. And in Rome, courage was the beginning of all great stories. After the danger with Sulla passed, Caesar decided to leave Rome for a while. He wanted to study, to grow. He traveled to the island of Rhodes to learn the art of speaking and philosophy. A good speaker in Rome was like a powerful weapon, and Caesar knew this. But the journey to Rhodes would become one of the most famous adventures of his life. Somewhere on the water, his ship was stopped. Pirates. In those days, pirates were a serious problem in the Mediterranean Sea. They captured Caesar and his small group of servants, held them, and sent a message demanding a ransom: 20 talents of silver, a fortune. But Caesar laughed. He told the pirates that 20 talents was not enough. He was Caesar, he said. They should ask for 50. The pirates thought this was funny. They liked him. They let him move around the ship. They played games with him. Caesar read them his poetry and speeches, and when they did not listen carefully, he called them uneducated. He smiled when he said it, but he meant every word. And then, calmly, almost as if it were a joke, he told them something else. That when he was free, he would come back, he would find them, and he would have them killed. The pirates laughed again. They thought he was joking. He was not joking. After 38 days, the ransom was paid and Caesar was released. He went immediately to the nearest Roman port, gathered ships, gathered men, went back, found the pirates, captured them, and had them crucified, exactly as he had promised. The story spread across Rome like fire. Who was this young man who made jokes with pirates and then kept every word of his promise? Rome was beginning to remember the name Caesar. Caesar returned to Rome with something new: stories, a reputation, and a plan. Rome had a clear system. If you wanted power, you climbed a ladder of political positions, one step at a time. Caesar understood this completely. He was charming, intelligent, an extraordinary speaker, and he was not afraid to spend money, even money he did not have. He borrowed heavily. He paid for public games and festivals. The crowds loved him. He was one of them, they felt. He walked among them, remembered their names, smiled and listened, gave them bread and entertainment, and in return, they gave him votes and loyalty. He rose through the positions, slowly at first and then faster. He became a military commander in Spain, where for the first time he led soldiers into real battle. He was good at it, very good. He was brave in a way that surprised even experienced soldiers, always near the front, pushing his men hard, but also caring for them, learning their names. A soldier who feels seen will follow his general anywhere. Caesar came back from Spain with gold, with victories, and with a new confidence. Rome had many great men, but Caesar was starting to feel that Rome had not yet seen what he was truly capable of. He was around 40 years old now, and the most important chapter of his life was just beginning. Back in Rome, Caesar saw a problem. Power in the city was divided and confused. There were two great men who stood above all others. One was Pompey, a celebrated general, loved by the army and the people, who had conquered lands in the east and brought great wealth to Rome. The other was Crassus, the richest man in all of Rome, perhaps in all the world, with money and connections everywhere. Caesar understood something these two men did not fully see. Alone, none of them had complete power. But together, the three of them could control everything. So Caesar did what he did best. He talked, he connected, he made deals. Quietly, he brought Pompey and Crassus together and proposed that they support each other, share power, work together. This arrangement was not official. Later, historians would call it the First Triumvirate. 3 men, 1 purpose. Caesar also gave his daughter Julia in marriage to Pompey. A political move, yes, but Julia and Pompey were genuinely fond of each other, and family bonds could hold alliances in ways that words alone could not. With Crassus providing money and Pompey providing military prestige, Caesar was given what he needed most: a new command, a new territory, a new war. He was appointed governor of Gaul, the vast and wild lands to the north and west in the area we now call France. And so Caesar packed his things, said goodbye to Rome, and rode north. He did not know it then, but he was riding toward the greatest achievements of his life. Gaul was not one place. It was many tribes, many languages, many chiefs. Some were friendly to Rome, many were not. When Caesar arrived, the situation was already complicated. Tribes were moving, wars were beginning, and Caesar used this. He moved fast, he fought hard, he made alliances where he could, and crushed resistance where he had to. His soldiers marched in all weather, built bridges over wide rivers in just a few days, built walls around entire cities, and moved with a speed that shocked their enemies. Over 8 years, Caesar fought across all of Gaul. He crossed the Rhine River into Germania. He even crossed the water to the mysterious island of Britain, twice, and no Roman general had gone there before. Back in Rome, people read his dispatches with wide eyes. Caesar was a brilliant writer who sent regular reports in clear and powerful Latin, and the Roman people felt they were living the adventure with him. But the wars were not easy or clean. There was great suffering, and many died on both sides. The most difficult moment came near the end, when a young Gallic chieftain named Vercingetorix united the tribes against Rome. He was brave and clever. He refused to fight directly, and instead burned crops and villages, leaving the Roman army with no food. It almost worked. But at the siege of a place called Alesia, Caesar surrounded the entire Gallic army with walls and defeated them. Vercingetorix surrendered his sword personally to Caesar. Gaul belonged to Rome, and Caesar had his greatest victory. While Caesar was fighting in Gaul, the world in Rome had been changing. Crassus had died in a distant war. Julia, Caesar's daughter and Pompey's wife, had died in childbirth. The bonds between Caesar and Pompey began to break. The men who feared Caesar's power worked hard to separate the two, and they succeeded. Pompey was persuaded to side with the Senate against Caesar. The message was clear: give up your army, come back to Rome as a private man, and if you return with soldiers, it would be an act of war. It was a moment that could end everything. If Caesar obeyed, he would probably be put on trial, destroyed politically, maybe killed. If he disobeyed, he would start a civil war. He would be fighting against Rome itself. Caesar stood at the edge of a small river in northern Italy, the Rubicon, the legal boundary no general could cross with his army. To cross was to commit treason. His soldiers stood behind him. The night was quiet. And Caesar thought. He thought about everything he had built, everything he might lose. And then he said words that Romans would repeat for centuries. The die was cast. He crossed the Rubicon. With that step, the world changed. Civil war began, and Caesar marched toward Rome. What happened next moved with extraordinary speed. Caesar's reputation was so powerful and his army so loyal that city after city in Italy simply opened its gates to him. Pompey and many senators fled Rome entirely, sailing east to Greece to gather forces. Caesar entered Rome quietly, almost calmly, and showed that he could be generous in victory. He did not punish those who had opposed him. He called this his policy of mercy, clemency, and he wanted loyalty, not fear. He fought Pompey at a great battle in Greece called Pharsalus, and won completely. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was killed. Caesar arrived in Egypt shortly after, and there he met a woman who would become one of the most famous people in all of history. Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, young and brilliant, and in serious danger of losing her throne to her own brother. Caesar helped her, supported her claim to power, and they became close allies, and more than allies. He fought more wars, east and west, and won them all. When he returned to Rome, he was, without question, the most powerful man in the world. He celebrated with 4 great public triumphs. The streets of Rome were filled with music and soldiers and golden treasures from distant lands. The people cheered. And Caesar began to build. With power secured, Caesar moved quickly. He had so many ideas and had seen so much of the world. He reformed the calendar. The old Roman one was confused and inaccurate, and Caesar replaced it with a new one based on the movements of the sun. With small changes made much later, this is essentially the calendar we still use today. He rebuilt Carthage and Corinth. He worked to reduce poverty in Rome by sending citizens to new colonies. He gave citizenship to people across the empire who had long been without it. He improved the courts, rebuilt the Senate, and filled it with people from all over the empire, not just old Roman families, because he wanted Rome to be an empire that belonged to everyone in it. These were big ideas, good ideas, many historians believe, but they made powerful people uncomfortable. The old noble families had always controlled everything.